Radio IKIM Inspirasi Fora Islami. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to the dear listeners of IKIM FM. Welcome to another episode of Global Muslim Matters, your portal to the world of Muslim affairs across the globe. This show is a collaboration program between IKIM with International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia. And for today, our topic for today is charting the role of the Muslim Ummah in resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict, a strategic initiative. And to talk about it, I have with me today Mr. Sayuti bin Mansor, Research Fellow at IAIS Malaysia. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Sayuti.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
And how are you, Mr. Sayuti?
Alhamdulillah. Okay.
Alhamdulillah. And Mr. Sayuti, this is not your first time being with us in this show. This is your second time being with us. Thank you for being with us for
True,
today.
true.
And
Thank you to you too.
Yes, and continuing to our previous discussion, of course, we have been talking about the Israel's aggression towards Gaza for the past few weeks. And in this episode, we would like to look at in the perspective of the role of Muslim Ummah. And going to the first question, as for now, the aggression has been going for more than a month, right? And in the light of the current situation and the developments in Gaza, what immediate priorities should be emphasized to address the humanitarian crisis and prevent its recurrence?
All right. Thank you, Patricia, for having me. So we all know that the situation right now in Gaza is very critical. The Israeli Defense Force, or the IDF, has been engaged in the ground operation for almost a month, and coupled with more than a month ruthless carpet bombing. Unfortunately, civilian casualties have reached almost 15,000, making it imperative for us to address the humanitarian crisis immediately. So, what do we actually need? First and foremost, I think we need an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire. Currently, there is discussion for a humanitarian pause for several days to give time for humanitarian aid, medic, and exchange of hostages. But a mere humanitarian pause won't be enough. We must put an end to Israeli aggression. So it is crucial that we push for a complete cessation of hostilities in Gaza Strip. And next, we have to ensure the ceasefire stability and accountability. So the next immediate step is to recognize the war crimes being committed in Gaza and bring this criminal to justice. It is time to hold Israel accountable for the war crimes. For example, Omar Bartov, professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Brown University, said that there is enough evidence to say that the war crime has been committed because of the disproportionality between the military goals and the number of civilians killed. So, Benjamin Netanyahu, his ministers, and his military generals should face investigation and prosecution. This ensures that justice is served and act as a deterrent against future transgression. In this regard, we have seen harsh treatment and condemnation for war crime elsewhere, like in the case of Russia's President Vladimir Putin in the Ukraine war. For example, in March 2023, following an investigation of war crimes, the International Criminal Court ICC issued arrest warning for President Putin. So we can see that there is a glaring double standard in the deafening silence surrounding the atrocities in Gaza. Our Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has rightly pointed out this double standard at the recent APEC summit, and he demanded equal accountability for all nations involved in such action. And also, I think we have to prevent the future conflict from occurring again. So to prevent future conflict, we must address the root causes. This includes eradicating extremist elements within the Israeli government and politics. The existing provocation, like incursion into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, illegal settlement expansion, and excavation near the Al-Aqsa compound must cease. The path to fair peace negotiation begin with Israel stopping this provocation and repression against Palestinians. We must create a conducive environment where both parties can engage in diplomatic and just negotiation. The ultimate goal surely is to secure the right of Palestinian people and work toward a sustainable and lasting peace in the region. So I believe that are some of our most important priorities right now. Thank you.
And Mr. Sayuti, just now you mentioned of the word double standard, and it's very interesting when the Prime Minister, you mentioned that the Prime Minister call out for the equal accountability. Obviously, as for now, we could see that especially in the younger generation, more and more people are becoming more supportive in the Israel. However, there is this one country that seems like they are still holding strong to their perspective toward the Israel. So, as for now, Israel has traditionally enjoyed strong support from the US and also the West. How can we strategically work to alter this dynamic?
Okay, thank you. Well, to address the traditional and robust support that Israel has enjoyed from the US and the West, we must first identify the reason behind this historical alliance. It is an open secret that the West, especially the US, has historically provided unwavering support to Israel, politically, economically, as well as militarily. They are backed by a powerful Israel lobby in Washington, and this support has cost US taxpayers billions of dollars annually. They justify this with the perception of Israel's role in safeguarding US interests. There are several key elements to consider. Most importantly, first, the public sentiment, and then second, governmental strategic interest. So first, let's talk about the public sentiment. Public sentiment toward Israel has deep historical root in the West, and it is shaped by shared values and to some extent a lingering sense of sympathy and guilt post-Holocaust. Another justification usually put forward is the powerful moral case for providing Israel with unqualified support. Israel is claimed to be the only country in the region that shares democratic, moral, and peace values with the West. Next, on the governmental level, strategic interest and the perception of potential partnership has solidified this support. In this regard, Israel is seen as the main partner of the United States to protect its dominance in the region. Israel is considered important to balance the power of Middle Eastern countries that are seen as hostile to the US, such as Iran, Iraq, as well as Syria. However, positive developments are emerging. We can see that there is a shift in this narrative. Strategic interests of the Israel are on the decline. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has reduced its dependence on Israel. Instead, the US support for Israel in Palestine has been blamed to fuel anti-American sentiment in the region, and it has threatened America's dire need for influence in the oil-rich Persian Gulf, which is much more important than Israel's geopolitical significance in the Eastern Mediterranean. And next, the claim of shared moral and democratic values, as I mentioned earlier, are also losing credibility. The rise of extreme right group in Israeli politics, as well as Netanyahu's authoritarian rule, has undermined the notion that Israel is a democratic country. For example, the infamous fiasco last July in which President Joe Biden hesitated to host Netanyahu in the White House amid his controversies in repressing the rule of law in Israel further reflect the diminishing appeal of this special relationship between Israel and the US. All right, so as a Muslim Ummah, we have to seize this opportunity. We have to seize this opportunity to alter this landscape. First, Muslim nations with increasing strategic interest with the West and the US should leverage their position to advocate for a more balanced position by the West in this conflict. We already witnessed some effort from countries such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and others, and we hope for more. Second, on a more general level, we as a Muslim community must focus on exposing Israel's atrocities and crimes to the West. In this age of social media, where information travels rapidly and public discourse is shaped in real time, we can see that the traditional lobbying tactics are no longer effective. The Israel lobby, historically influential, may encounter challenges in directly shaping public opinion. Therefore, Our strategy approach should involve leveraging social media platforms to disseminate information widely. We need to keep on revealing the reality that Israel is not what it claims to be. It is in fact undemocratic, cruel, and it is the true aggressor in this conflict. By doing this, we can weaken the Western public support for Israel. And in fact, this is already happening right now. We can see the huge protests against Israel is being conducted in the Western countries such as the UK and the US. And sometimes this protest is much more larger than in the Muslim country itself. So some positive changes is definitely happening today, and we need to keep pushing.
And given the importance of building alliances and garnering international support for Palestine, um, what specific strategies can be implemented to establish a resilient alliance with nations and identities that being sympathetic to its cause?
Yes, correct. In today's complex landscape of international politics, the importance of building alliances and consolidating support cannot be overstated. Allies play a crucial role in shaping narrative, influencing policy decisions, and providing a collective voice on the global stage. For the Palestinian cause, establishing resilient alliances is not only a strategic imperative but a moral necessity. So, there are specific strategies to build alliances with nations and entities sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. All right, let's begin by identifying potential allies.
So, okay, boleh teruskan.
Yes, in today's complex landscape of international politics, the importance of building alliances and consolidating support cannot be overstated. Allies, allies play a crucial role in shaping narrative, influencing policy decisions, and providing a collective voice on the global stage. For the Palestinian cause, establishing resilient alliances is not only a strategic imperative, but also a moral necessity. So, there are specific strategies to build alliances with nations and entities sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. All right, let's begin by identifying potential allies. First and foremost, I think the obvious option would be the Muslim world. We stand out as a natural ally due to a shared sense of solidarity rooted in both humanity and Islamic faith. Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest place in Islam, serves as a unifying symbol, reinforcing the notion that Muslims should consider themselves as a single body in solidarity. Moving beyond the state level, communities within Muslim majority countries can form strong alliances with Palestinians driven by a common faith and a shared commitment to justice. So we must engage in diplomatic effort with Muslim countries, which involve fostering a deeper sense of solidarity. Next, we turn to the global South countries. These countries has experienced the same bitter legacy of colonization by Western powers. Nations such as South Africa, having endured empathize with the struggle faced by Palestinians. Also, leftist Latin American countries with strong anti-colonial sentiment such as Bolivia, Colombia, Chile, and Honduras has shown solidarity by cutting ties with Israel after recent conflict in Gaza. So, with these global South countries, we need to leverage on our shared experiences of resistance against colonization. Next, another potential allies are the so-called neutral countries. By emphasizing on the humanitarian crisis faced by Palestinians, diplomatic effort can seek support from these neutral countries. They can help us to push for ceasefires in international platforms like the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA. The recent overwhelming support for ceasefire resolution at the UNGA on October 26 with 120 member states in favor and only 14 opposing show the potential strength of such alliances. In engaging these neutral countries, the focus on the humanitarian crisis faced by Palestinians is key. This involves continuous effort to raise awareness globally, using international platforms to garner support for ceasefire, aid delivery, and long-term solution to the conflict. And lastly, we may find ally within the Western countries itself. There are parties and civil society organizations in West that are sympathetic to the Palestinian struggle. This group can be crucial allies in advocating for justice and humanitarian principles and ultimately can create a broader base of support within Western societies. So, the Palestinian cause stand to benefit from a strategic approach to alliance building by recognizing the potential allies within the Muslim world, global South countries, neutral states, and sympathetic entities in the West, and also by implementing targeted strategies, we can create a powerful coalition dedicated to resolving the long-standing conflict and advancing justice for the Palestinian people. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And when we're talking usually about coalition, of course, especially between the countries, they must there's also the perspective of or the elements of rivalry. So, considering the ongoing great power rivalries in the Middle East, how can these geopolitical dynamics be leveraged to facilitate a constructive resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict?
All right, thank you, Batisha. As I mentioned earlier, Israel has usually gotten special treatment from the US. For many decades, the US, as the sole superpower dominating the MENA region, has facilitated this preferential treatment for Israel at the negotiation table with Arab nations. As a result, during previous Arab-Israeli peace process, Israel always had the upper hand in negotiation. It got to protect its interests at the expense of the Palestinian. This manifested in actions such as the annexation of the West Bank and Jerusalem and the rapid expansion of illegal settlement there, with Palestinians always end up making the biggest sacrifices. However, the current landscape of great power rivalries has brought about a shift in reality. The US now is no longer the sole dominant power in the region. In fact, the US has redirected its focus and interest away from the Middle East. So, this shift is expected to influence the dynamic of the peace process and negotiation between Israel and Palestine. The MENA region is now characterized by multipolarity, marked by the growing influence of Russia and then China. First, let's talk about Russia. Russia is a historical superpower with influence dating back to the Soviet era, and it is making a comeback in the region with heavy influence, particularly in Syria and Iran. This resurgence has reignited Russian interest in the Israel-Palestine conflict, with President Vladimir Putin publicly expressing support for the Palestinian cause. And next, China. China, although traditionally absent in the region, it has now taken on a more active role. Despite its lack of historical presence in the region, China always aligned itself with the global South in opposing to the West. And recently, its growing economic power has enabled successful involvement in regional diplomacy, such as brokering rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So, how does this impact the Israel-Palestine conflict? Given this geopolitical shift, as I said earlier, the dynamic of the Israel-Palestine conflict are undergoing significant changes. First, Israel now can no longer expect the same special treatment it once received. The United States now navigating the peace process with a different focus. It is less inclined to prioritize Israel interests above all else. Instead, the US now seeks to maintain influence with emerging regional powers such as Saudi Arabia. Secondly, with the emergence of alternative patrons in the peace process, namely Russia and China, a more balanced approach can be anticipated. As both countries have historically shown sympathy toward the Palestinian cause, or at least impartiality, unlike the US, this hopefully will translate into a potential shift in the negotiation dynamic. This shift hopefully will result in increased concession being demanded from the Israeli side that eventually will foster progress toward peace in this region. And last but not least, Now there are the rise of regional powers, such as, like I mentioned earlier, Saudi Arabia and another like Iran and Turkey. In this multipolar landscape, allow for a more inclusive peace process. These countries now have a greater say in this negotiation because they are now more balanced distribution of power in the MENA region. Thank you.
And as we are reaching the end of the conversation, Mr. Sayuti, examining the current state of the conflict, in your opinion, how does it reflect the present level of solidarity within the Muslim Ummah?
Okay, thank you. I think, to be fair, the global Muslim community has consistently supported the Palestinian cause, and the present situation is no different. Economically and socially, there has been a remarkable demonstration of solidarity. Muslim nation has extended financial aid, and individuals have actively engaged in fundraising and awareness campaign. Besides, crucial diplomatic effort by neighboring countries such as Egypt and Qatar are underway behind the scene, seeking to facilitate ceasefire. However, it is undeniable that greater unity is crucial to resolving the ongoing conflict. This can be seen in the recent urgent meeting of the Arab League, as well as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, in which we failed to consolidate effort and issue a more clear-cut resolution. So I think the root of this challenge lies in our underlying issue and problem. There is lack of aligned interest in our foreign policy. Unfortunately, our focus often remains on narrow self-interest rather than prioritizing solidarity within the Muslim Ummah. Each country has its strategic calculation in this conflict to preserve their own national interest, disregarding the greater solidarity that could bind us together. But this approach only serves to divide us despite our strength and potential. The current solidarity often focuses only at the community level, while leaders at the top usually treat this conflict as a strategic game, moving only when it benefits them the most. So as a way forward, I propose that we contemplate placing greater consideration on the interests of our ummah in our foreign policy and strategic calculation. I'm being realistic here. I'm not calling for an immediate revival of the caliphate or anything drastic. No. Instead, I only suggest that the Muslim nation strives to align our foreign policy and strategic interests together. Other nations such as the West have successfully doing this. They have successfully united under larger entities like the EU, European Union, as well as NATO. They align their interests and foster a sense of collective responsibility. For example, there is a famous doctrine in the NATO that an attack on one member of NATO is considered an attack to the whole NATO itself. So why we can do the same when, as I mentioned earlier, we are naturally bonded together under the brotherhood of Islamic faith. Like Prophet Muhammad said in hadith, Al-mu'minu lil-mu'min kal-bunyan yashuddu ba'duhu ba'da. A believer to another believer is like a building in which different parts enforce each other. So we can definitely accomplish more only if we are united. Thank you.
Cik Sayuti, maaf.
Terputus tadi, tapi recording ni macam jalan lagi.
Cik Sayuti boleh dengar saya tak?
Apa dia?
Okay, Cik Sayuti boleh dengar saya tak?
Boleh?
Oh, teruk sangat ni. Okay. Saya rasa
sebab
dia memang
recording
kena
ni nampak berjalan.
Oh, recording nampak berjalan?
Ha.
Jadi yang problemnya saya je lah.
Tu tak pastilah sebab
okay,
first time tadi waktu berhenti recording ni dia terus pause. Tapi yang ni tadi dia macam dia terus jalan.
Dia terus jalan. Okay, ni memang kena edit lah macam ni. Okay. Kita try lagi sekali boleh untuk jawab je lagi soalan.
Soalan last ni. Boleh.
Soalan
Buat sekali
terakhir
lagi.
tu. Start semula lah.
Okay.
Okay,
Boleh.
yang ni kita try je dulu. Kalau saya terkeluar pun Cik Sayuti sambung je. Kalau Cik Sayuti nampak yang recording macam dia punya minit tu berjalan, Cik Sayuti sambung je.
Boleh.
Kalau at the end tu pun saya tak masuk lagi, Cik Sayuti boleh endkan dulu.
Oh, mana live studio ni?
Cik Sayuti okay. Nanti ataupun Cik Sayuti dah bercakap, kalau saya tak masuk lagi just in case waktu Cik Sayuti habis bercakap tu tak apa-apa. Okay, saya cakap lepas tu dia cakap thank you.
Okay.
Lepas tu Cik Sayuti tunggu je saya masuk balik. Nanti waktu conclusion macam tak adalah Cik Sayuti. Kalau just in case saya terkeluar lagi sekali.
Okay. Beres.
Alright. Lagi sekali Okay, kita cuba dulu. Okay, bismillah. Okay, sekejap saya sambung. Oh, dia dah record. Okay, boleh sambung. Okay, dipersilakan.
Okay. Alright, to be fair, the global Muslim community has consistently supported the Palestinian cause, and the present situation is no different. Economically and socially, there has been a remarkable demonstration of solidarity. Muslim nations have extended financial aid, and individuals have actively engaged in fundraising and awareness campaigns. Besides, crucial diplomatic efforts by neighboring countries such as Egypt and Qatar are underway behind the scenes, seeking to facilitate ceasefire. However, it is undeniable that greater unity is crucial to resolving the ongoing conflict. This can be seen in the recent urgent meeting of the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, in which we failed to consolidate effort and issue a more clear-cut resolution. I think the root of this challenge lies in our underlying issue and problem, which is lack of aligned interest in our foreign policy. Unfortunately, our focus often remains on narrow self-interest rather than prioritizing solidarity within the Muslim Ummah. Each country, unfortunately, has its strategic calculation in this conflict to preserve their own national interest, disregarding the greater solidarity that could bind us together. But this approach only serves to divide us, despite our strength and potential. The current solidarity often focuses only at the community level, while leaders at the top treat this conflict as a strategic game, moving only when it benefits them the most. So as a way forward, I propose that we contemplate placing greater consideration on the interests of our Ummah in our foreign policy and strategic calculation. I'm being realistic here. I'm not calling for an immediate revival of the caliphate or anything drastic. No. Instead, I merely suggest that Muslim nations strive to align our foreign policy and strategic interests together. And this, in fact, other nations such as the West has successfully united under largest entities. They have united under entities like the EU, European Union. Sorry, sekali lagi.
Tak apa, boleh. Nanti saya edit.
Nak start semula mana? Terus as a way forward saya semula tadi.
Okay, as a way forward. Okay.
Alright, so as a way forward, I propose that we contemplate placing greater consideration on the interests of our Ummah. And I'm being realistic here. I'm not calling for an immediate revival of the caliphate or anything drastic. No. Instead, I merely suggest that the Muslim nation strives to align our foreign policy and strategic interests together. And this, in fact, other nations such as the West has successfully united under larger entities like the EU and NATO. They align their interests and foster a sense of collective responsibility. For example, this is a famous doctrine in the NATO that an attack to one member of NATO is considered an attack on the whole NATO itself. So why can't we do the same? When in fact, as I mentioned earlier, we are naturally bonded together under the brotherhood of the Islamic faith. Like the Prophet Muhammad SAW said in hadith, Al-mu'minu lil-mu'min kal-bunyan yashuddu ba'duhu ba'dah. A believer to another believer is like a building in which different parts enforce each other. So, I believe we can definitely accomplish more only if we are united. Thank you.
And with that being said, I would like to thank Mr. Sayuti bin Mansor for his insight on today's topic, charting the role of the Muslim Ummah in resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict, a strategic initiative. And we hope that today's interview will be beneficial to those who are listening to us either through radio or even through our social media. And again, Mr. Sayuti, thank you for being with us in this episode.
My pleasure.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And dear listeners, if you miss any part of the show, you can watch it again through our Facebook page, IKIM FM, and on YouTube, IKIM Media. And we'll be back next week with more interesting topics, so don't change the radio station. Stay tuned to IKIM FM Inspirasi Infora Islami.